All right, so now I'd like to turn to our featured modeler, who is the expert and I think the inventor, really, of the product for LocoFi, which is their operating system. Peshgar has been on the show before, and welcome back, Pesh. I really do appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you, Jim.
So you're still in India, I see.
Yeah, that's right.
But I appreciate you coming on the show this evening. You want to talk about this Series 3 product that you've come out with?
Yes, sure. Absolutely. Right.
So I'll turn it over to you and let you tell us all about it. What is it all about, and what improvements have you made to the basic Wi-Fi or LocoFi system?
Hey, thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me. I really want to thank Jim Keller and the team for giving me this opportunity again. I've been on this show, I would say, a few times, and I'm just glad to be back here. So I'm just gonna share my screen here. Right, LocoFi. So most of you are probably familiar with LocoFi. If not, we were the winner of 2019 MRR Reader's Choice Awards in the category of Innovation in Non-DCC Electronics and Control Systems. It's an award we won again in 2020. So what does it tell about LocoFi? That customers love us. We've got worldwide customers in more than 15 countries, Canada, Mexico, Britain, Germany, France, Switzerland, Finland, Netherlands, and the list is continuously growing. And our customers range from kids to 100-year-olds. And we've appeared and been reviewed multiple times in some of the top magazines in the world. You can read those and the translated scripts on our website under the news section. Not only that, we are a proud member of the NMRA partnership program, where we offer exclusive discounts to NMRA members and donate a part of the sales back into the hobby. So what is LocoFi? Simply put, it's an alternative in running trains. There are multitude ways of running trains. For example, DC, DCC, CTC, Blue Rail, Rail Pro, CVP, whatever the method, they all achieve the same purpose, that is running the trains. And LocoFi is simply one such method. So what does LocoFi offer? Now, before I go into what it offers, I would like to take a step back and imagine an ideal system. For a moment, just try to forget all the DC, DCC, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, radio control, all those things, and just clear your mind and imagine what would you like in an ideal system. Don't worry if it's practical or not, just try to imagine the ideal system. So I'm sure if I was to ask everyone and compare the answers, we'll find that as many designs, and with each imagined system, while it would be different, there would certainly be some basic similarities in all of them. Now, if I was to ask the same question even like 100 years ago, I guess the responses would have been very similar as far as an ideal system is concerned. Now, while many may even want features that do not represent the prototypical NAS, but if we were to focus on the realism and the prototypical NAS, then we'll find many more similarities than differences. Well, now, of course, ideal doesn't exist. For example, if you imagine like a physical throttle with tactile controls that would magically change shape depending on like what locomotive you want to operate, well, that doesn't exist, at least not yet. But we can try to get close to ideal. And the advancement of technology lets us come closer to that reality. Now, this sometimes may require hidden behind the scenes complexity, for example, like DCC. But then technology progresses further, and as it does, you realize that technology has made things simpler behind the scenes as well. And that's where LocoFi comes in. Now, going back to what does LocoFi offer? So LocoFi is that technology that is simpler behind the scenes, I just said. It offers everything in a simplistic way behind the scenes as well as user friendly. And what's the benefit out of it is low maintenance and more fun. And it is a big deal. So I'm sure many of you with existing like sophisticated systems probably know how true this is. For example, how much maintenance and planning is required, uh, like let's say before an op session, for example. Now those starter sets, they exist just to get you tied into an ecosystem, and then from there it's pieces after pieces of complex electronic equipment, modifications, customizations, patchwork of broken things, and you just keep fixing things. And if someone was to like look under the table, it would look like a data center with all those blinking lights and a mess of wires. A newcomer would really find it hard to believe, that is that what it takes to run model trains. And that's what pretty much happened to me when I first ventured into model railroading. I always thought, the real model making that like we were seeing a few minutes ago, the real art is got to be the hardest thing in model railroading. I mean, trying to imagine the scene and then realizing it with vibrant colors, like textures and all those things. But slowly the realization set in that, the model trains, which are like the center of attraction, but still a rather smaller part of the overall model making scene, seem to be the most complex aspect. And that blew me away. It just set me on a path to do more research, only to find more pieces and pieces of complex electronic equipment to run like a model railroad. Now, model railroading seemed far and out of touch with the current technology. Uh, I guess part of it is because maybe it's a niche hobby. Let's say if it was as popular as like kids' toys with the latest lightsabers and the cool BB-8s remote controlled and all that, or maybe today's smartphones, uh, there would have been so many innovations and the cost would have been dramatically low for everyone to afford easily. Alas, that's not the case. So the niche artists are stuck with what is out there. And that's when I decided to take a plunge and see how hard could it be to like simplify things. And with my background in software development and wireless networking, I gave it a try. And as it turned out, it was rather simple to simplify. And the result is that we have our third generation of the LocoFi module within a span of 4 years. So basically, when we started out at LocoFi, we imagined ideal, and then based on what's available in the latest technology today, we tried to model something close to ideal. Not only that, we also wanted to leverage the existing infrastructure present in every house and in everybody's hands. That is the smartphone. And like we do everything on the smartphone these days, why not run trains? And we thought, like, is it really possible? Well, it turns out smartphone is a computer first and then a phone, really. So it has all the kinds of all kinds of sensors and actuators built right in. No wonder there are all kinds of apps out there. I mean, you name it and it's there. So not that we cannot have a handheld dedicated controller for LocoFi as well, something like a proto throttle or something similar. But if you want versatility, flexibility, then nothing beats smartphones. And now we also believe in reuse even before we recycle. So why not use like a spare old laptop, power supply, as the power source for the layout? Why not use like an existing home router with available bandwidth for networking? And finally, why not use an existing throttle, that is your smartphone, that you use for everything else in your hand? And for the same reason, we do not actually sell power supplies, home routers, or throttles. And actually, that's all you need to run your model railroad with LocoFi. And we made LocoFi so generic that it is compatible with most third-party hardware than we trying to sell our own proprietary equipment. Not only that, we also make sure that it's compatible with other custom hardware, like the DCC power supplies and all those things. So in simple words, LocoFi offers simplicity, which of course has far-reaching benefits that we will see in the following slides. So simplify Wi-Fi LocoFi. Simplification through the use of Wi-Fi technology is our motto, and that's how we see how we achieve that. Simplified multi-user, multi-train control. So true multi-user, multi-train control. For example, let's say you have a roster of trains at your club, or like say at an off session. Each engineer can pick what trains they want to run from the list of available trains on the dashboard, and the trains remain with him or her, until he or she releases them. Then there can be multiple engineers running multiple trains, and your trains are yours unless you want to release them or you want to transfer them to another engineer. So we'll see in a moment how it's done, but this is what we call the true multi-user, multi-train control. User customizable onboard sound. Now, even so-called the standards fail here. I mean, there's no agreed standard on sound. It's all proprietary. So when we started out with LocoFi, we could not imagine a system with no sound. So we often get asked, if there are modules that we sell without sound, and we simply say, please cut off the speaker, or if you don't want the sound, or just load the blank sound, whatever. But we could not imagine a system without sound. That's the key aspect of realism. And so how do we get a system with sound and no proprietariness to it? Yes, we introduce the ability to edit sounds in an easy way based on the open source format that will let you load your own custom sounds. The sounds you might have grown up, hearing as a kid, but not available by a decoder manufacturer or by any other third party out there. Not only that, it opens up the possibilities of new custom sounds that you can define on your own. And it also opens up a vast array of talent, the third party sound engineers out there who can really create wonderful sound files and not be dependent on what's offered by like a decoder manufacturer. So it's pretty open system, open standards based. And lastly, unparalleled prototypical operation, realism. We strive to offer nothing but the most prototypical operation, from the slow start speed to easily customizable accelerating and decelerating momentum, number of notches, ability to set scale speeds, consisting visuals like speedometer. They're just few of the things that aid in realizing the realism. So how does LocoFi work? The networking technology lets us offer some unique combinations. Now, before I describe these combinations, I want to make one thing very clear, and that is LocoFi does not require any mobile or cell phone service or internet connection for the smartphone. Similarly, the home router or access point that you might want to use does not need to have any internet service either. So let's look at the different combinations and scenarios LocoFi can be set up in. So the first one we see here is a direct, the most simplistic, which is the direct Wi-Fi connection from the smartphone to the LocoFi module, which is installed in your locomotive. So you go to your Android wireless settings and select the LocoFi module you want to connect to. Once connected, launch the app and you can see the Loco on the dashboard. Second, the most common for small layouts would be a smartphone and all the Locos connecting to an SSID being broadcast by a home router or access point. You simply connect your smartphone to the access point and then add the Locos to the same network. And lastly, which is an extension of the above, point number 2, is a multiple smartphones and multiple Locos connecting to a single access point. And basically we have multiple users running multiple trains, and each user knows who's running what trains. It's all visible on the dashboard. And this is why we call it true multi-engineer, multi-train environment. Now, apart from these basic combinations that I just described, there are some other interesting combinations that can be done. For example, let's look at the direct Wi-Fi connection. Now, it may seem like one Loco per smartphone, but however, because the connected LocoFi module is acting like an access point, you can actually have up to 7 other LocoFi modules connect to that first LocoFi module and act as its clients. And you have a network of almost 8 locomotives with one phone without the need for a Wi-Fi router. And not only that, you can have other smartphones connect to this network too. The total limit on the number of devices that you can have is going to be about 8, but that's without using an external access point. I mean, the LocoFi module by itself, acting as a router, can support up to 8 devices. So it's really good for like really small layouts. Now, for a slightly bigger layout, what you can do is instead of making the LocoFi module as the access point, you can actually make your smartphone as a hotspot. And again, you don't need a data connection here like a hotspot that you might be familiar with. But this is the hotspot basically makes your smartphone an access point where all the Locos and all the other smartphones can connect to as clients. Now, it will depend on the like how powerful your smartphone is, how the processor can really deal with the connections, and based on that, it will determine the number of devices that can be connected. And of course, let's take another end, which is the extreme super large layouts. We can have multiple Wi-Fi access points, exclusive, dedicated for that, and all having the same SSID, and they form a mesh network. And that just extends your ability to control trains from much farther away. You can walk with your train from one end of the layout to another without losing any connectivity at all. I mean, just imagine, for example, you are at an airport and connected to the airport Wi-Fi and browsing internet, and you go from one terminal to another and you don't lose connectivity. It's very similar to that. And to top it all, you could even do remote operations over the internet. For example, if there was a LocoFi engine on a layout across the country or even continent, you could simply operate it from here with like one throttle, with the throttle in my hand. So here's how the dashboard looks like. For example, we see like 4 locomotives here in the dashboard. And the first one is actually a consist. The lead locomotive represents the consist name, and the 3 locomotives are the helpers, and it tells what kind of configuration they are in, reverse or forward. The second one, so the one that has the release button on the right hand side is being managed by this throttle, the engineer 08. And you can see the GTS4 is managed by engineer 06 and UPES 444, and that's not available for you to manage unless that engineer releases the locomotive. The third one, which is the Southern 2148, is available for anyone to start managing. And this is how the dashboard looks like. The top bar, you will see like there are two locomotives that I have managed. I clicked on, let's say, Southern also I'm managing, and you can switch between the locomotives with the single swipe of your finger, or you can click on the top menu bar on the locomotive name and it will switch to that screen. So you can quickly switch between trains and quickly access them. And this is how the dashboard looks like. There's a speedometer, a tachometer, horn, bell, lights, start button, emergency stop. And some of these are like new features that we have introduced that I'll be covering in the following slides. All right, so the LocoFi journey. So we started out in 2018 with one basic feature, that is we wanted to lay a very solid groundwork, solid foundation, and we wanted to have this key feature, which is the ability to update firmware over the air, also known as OTA. And now with that solid foundation, we can have a scalable system where we can keep adding features, incrementally, like over time. And we have proven it multiple times. We have released multiple updates since then, and each time we added more and more features. Like in 2019, we added customizable app settings, like for each app, the throttle in your hand, your own phone, you can have some custom settings that, for example, whether you want to have vibration on your throttle, the tactile feedback, or you want to have sounds for your cab sounds or not. That's all very personalized. But then there are other things which are settings of the locomotive itself. And for example, whether you want to like have auto connection, stop loss, or all those kinds of things we'll cover in a moment. So we introduced those, and then towards the end of 2021, we introduced consisting, and Steam is in the works. The new latest module, LocoFi 3, we introduced has the hardware to do the Steam sounds. We still haven't released the related firmware update and the sounds themselves, which is still being worked on, but it's there, and it should be out shortly. And going beyond, we plan to have accessory controls, iOS apps, like high current modules for really larger scales. And we also have plans for the Umbrage, which is our power backup solution for like all kinds of dirty track issues. Not only that, you can even use it for like dead rail scenarios and like that. All right. So let's first see what LocoFi is not. Definitely not wiring. Then, of course, no extra equipment like boosters, computers, programmers, command stations, switches, blocks, detectors, the frog users, reverse loop electronics, etc. There is nothing like that. There is not even any soldering to the soldering to the tracks required. So no headaches, and not going under the table means you save your head, pun intended. And yes, LocoFi is none of that. We don't believe in complexity. More complexity means more points of failure, more error prone, and more maintenance. You fix one thing and another one will break. So you're pretty much fixing things, and you miss out on the real fun. So what LocoFi is? So what is LocoFi now? Simply put, it's four things. Number one, a power supply that can be DC, DCC, battery, or even AC. And not only that, the power supply can be any voltage from 7 volts to 24 volts. Number two, the LocoFi module itself, the hardware. Number three, the LocoFi app that is free to download and work with. And number four, the optional Wi-Fi router. like we covered earlier that how we can do away without it, without using any external Wi-Fi router for like small layouts. But it's highly recommended for medium to large layouts, and you will really appreciate the benefit. So what does that leave us with? LocoFi is power agnostic. The power is separate from control. The direct result of which is that for existing layouts, you don't need a new specific power source, but the existing power source, be it DCC, will work. And LocoFi equipped locomotives will run alongside DCC locomotives nicely, or any other layout like DC or any other power layout. So basically, you take your locos anywhere. So let's say if you're a member of a DCC club and you're just starting out maybe, and you want to expand with LocoFi, you can simply take your locos to your club and take them to an op session. I've done that myself, and it just runs. So no maintenance, no headache, and more fun. So product updates. Let me briefly take you to our website, where I'll just go over some of the latest the product portfolio that we have as of today. And so here we have our first generation, the DDLLHA. It's a slightly larger module. It supports up to 2 amperes of current, and it comes with diesel sounds only. And it's a very successful product. But then we have a lot of demand for like a smaller module, and that's when we came up with the DDLLHB. It was also diesel sounds based, smaller, very much liked with everyone. But then we went out of stock, and then we had this problem of outsourcing these components and supply chain issues. So we couldn't really make a new run of it. But we changed some of the components, and while we realized that we are doing a big redesign here, why not introduce some new feature? And that's when we came out with DULLHP, and we added hardware for making Steam a possibility. We of course haven't released Steam firmware yet, which is in the works, but the hardware is there, and as soon as the update is out, we can have the Steam sound as well. So it can serve either for diesel or Steam. And then we have one other product, which is a 3D printed mount for the LocoFi for Athens. So Athens blue boxes, the ready to runs, the older ones, this pretty much all have the same chassis design, and they're one of our most popular locos that LocoFi gets installed in. So we thought, why not? And it's kind of hard to physically install inside. Like you can solder the wires, but then the module itself is kind of hanging in there. So we thought, why not design like a 3D printed that goes over the motor clips in the locomotive, and kind of we can nicely have an installation which just looks nice, and there is no fear of the wires getting tangled and so on. And Amrit is still a product which we are working on, and which we had to we were about to release it, but we had to cut back because of some last minute production issues, and we'll get back working on it after we release the Steam thing. So and I also want to point out we have I highly encourage that you can go to our resources section, FAQs, videos. There is plenty of information out there, and you can go and take a look at forum, what our customers are saying, and maybe help out with some of the other issues, and so on. So going back to the slides. Let's discuss the app updates. So first thing you will notice if you have been using LocoFi for some time is the overall look and feel of the app itself. We have now icons for each of those tools, actions, the menus, and everything. The layout has been greatly improved. We used to have that little trash icon for a locomotive that needs to be removed from a network. Now we have added to the tool section so that we have more real estate there. And the dashboard also has been improved. We've changed the color of the start button from red to green. It seems some people used to get confused thinking it as like an emergency stop. And then we introduced the emergency stop itself that you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, which is now red. And the indicator light is now orange on the right bottom corner, you can see. And the top menu where you see the names of the locomotives, you see DRG, WGP, 9M. And you can see a little green icon with 3 locomotives that indicates it's a consist, and the blue color also indicates the consist. For example, Southern 2148 is a single locomotive as represented by like a single icon. And let's discuss this. The latest feature that we introduced is the emergency stop. Now, this emergency stop is very unique in that it is pressure sensitive. You can customize the amount of pressure which will actually activate this emergency stop. For example, let's go to the next screen where I show you the app settings, and you can see the last setting is set emergency stop activation pressure. Now, you can customize the pressure by, over here, for example, I've set it to 13 here. So like a slight touch of the emergency stop will not activate it, but you have to really hit it hard to activate it so that, and you can customize this pressure. So, usually emergency situations are like, it's a thing you have to really press hard, like quickly, and so that we know when to actually activate it. So this is one of the cool features. I don't think any like a hand throttle also has it or anything like that. So next on the dashboard, on the top right hand corner, you see the menus. Menus also have icons. Let's go over. So we have this factory reset where in case of any corruption with the firmware for any reason, you can just factory reset. And we have the about menu where we introduced a revert firmware feature. For example, you updated your firmware and for some reason you wanted to go back and see, look at your older firmware, you can just say revert and it will take you back one version. And if you wanted to go beyond that, you keep doing like revert individually. And once you update the firmware again, it will prompt you automatically on the dashboard. You can simply come back to the latest firmware. So it's sometimes handy. So we just thought we'll put it out there. And so this is the config screen. So as you can see here in the menu, the first one is configure. And let's look at that configure screen. Now you can see we have been adding new configuration with each product update. And you must be familiar with the auto reverse lights, light direction, reverse engine direction, and so on. If not, you can watch some of the videos on our website. Let's talk about auto stop and connection loss. Now, this is a really cool feature. I don't think anybody out there in the industry offers this. And it is especially useful when doing wireless Wi-Fi remote control of any sort. And really useful for like dead rail scenarios. For example, you lose connectivity with your handheld smartphone, and for dead rail especially, I mean, there is no way to pull the plug or kind of power it off your engine and it just keeps going. Now, with this feature turned on, the locomotive will detect that it has lost communication and stop itself automatically. And that's really useful feature. You can turn it off if you want it for some unusual scenarios. It might be helpful. We just made it optional here. And then you can see we have scale and units. Now, we used to pretty much show the scale speed for HO. Now you can actually enter your scale like O, G, or any other in between scale like S scale and OO scale or anything like that. You enter it here, and when you do the scale speeds, when you configure the scale speeds will reflect the actual speeds on the speedometer once you have configured the scale. And you can switch between units like mph, and we have quite a few European customers who wanted like kilometers per hour things. So the next feature we introduced, and the biggest feature, was the consisting itself. There, and you see there is a checkbox, and that also requires you to enable scale speeds. And once you have all the locomotives configured for scale speeds, once you do consisting, they automatically know to run at whatever speed they have to. So without the consisting enabled, you can see there is the start speed step, start step delay. For example, once you push the throttle up, it takes a little while before your locomotive starts moving. It's for that, to bring like more realism there. And then you can have the maximum speed step. It can range from I believe 64 to 256, and you can also have display speed, which can be different from the scale speed actually. And once you enable the scale speeds, then your display speed will actually be the scale speed itself. Then you can configure momentum and inertia and coasting, as you can see. Once you check the box, you'll be prompted to create a speed table. You can have 7 speed step table or 2 speed steps. And the one interesting feature about this speed table is you can see at the top is the track voltage. So we can have up to 8 speed profiles, each configured for a separate track voltage. For example, you have a locomotive that you want to take to your club. And let's say at home you have 12 volts, at your club you have 15 volts. Now, if you have configured scale speeds for both the voltages and you take your locomotive to your club, all you have to do is switch the profile and your locomotive will run at scale speeds at your club. You bring it home, switch the speed profile to 12 volts, and it will run at 12 volts scale speeds. So you configure the speed table here. We have provided automatic calculators here. If you can just time your loop, and you just enter the time and it will calculate the scale speed for you. Or you can just use a commercial speedometer and just straight away enter the scale speed. And there are videos on our website for that demonstrate how exactly to configure the scale speed. Now, once we have the different profiles, this is how the configuration screen will look like. All those extra settings of max speed step, display speed, all those are gone. Now the scale speeds will be what gets displayed on your speedometer, and you run your speed trains looking at your speedometer, whatever speed you want to actually run at, and you notch up and down, and it just makes it for like extra realism there. All right, so high current modules. So I kind of put this slide in because there was like a high demand we were experiencing lately, that people wanted to have modules that they want to run larger scale locomotives like O scale and G scale. And now that we don't have an integrated module for like higher that support higher amperages yet, But we are offering for now, until we come out with those modules, like small modifications, like for a small fee, where we expose the PWM and direction, as you can see in the wiring diagram. I mean, you can do it yourself, but then we kind of we really highly recommend, these are like tiny connections. We highly recommend that we do it for you. And then you can attach an external H bridge with these outputs, and those H bridge can support whatever amperage you want. You can have heat sinks for really driving higher loads on those external H bridges, and it's really useful and very easy to configure. We have used this MD13S as an example, made by Cytron. It's, I think, a 13 amp H bridge, and the sizes that you see are, I think, comparable to our module. So they can easily fit inside like an O scale or even G scale, and you can get up to 13 amps of motor power using this. And so we just thought this would be a great way to run your model railroads with higher amperages. We don't sell these H bridges, by the way. It's all third-party stuff. So I think this one costs like 10 or 11 bucks, something like that. Moving on. So what does this mean for you? Now, going back to our original question, now you should have some idea of what LocoFi has to offer. You can clearly see how it can benefit you. You may also want to ask yourself, if you have an existing model layout, like, do you want more than what you already have? And you may question, if a technology has reached its limits and you want to go and explore something out there that is going to be the future, and will a new technology get me closer to ideal? And you obviously would have to evaluate what will be your costs in moving to a new technology that offers more. And obviously, I mean, LocoFi, I mean, there's not really much of a cost here except for the module itself. There is absolutely no change to your wiring or any other maintenance stuff that we already saw. And obviously, our biggest customer base is those who are in DC right now, or who are starting out like new layouts. DC layouts get the benefit of sound and realistic operation without them having to change all their wiring. And the new layouts, obviously, I mean, they're starting out, so there's nothing there to change. But we are seeing like an increasing number of dead rail layouts that are using LocoFi. So so here's a little graphic that kind of that shows how all the features and components of LocoFi, they kind of fit together to bring you the simplified multi-user, multi-train control, high fidelity sound onboard, and unparalleled prototypical operation without any need of any external complex proprietary type of equipment, and most likely utilizing something you already have at your home. So that's pretty much it. Thank you. And I won't be giving any live demos. I don't really have a setup here to give any live demos. However, there are plenty of videos on our website, and that cover from installation to setup, configuration, all that stuff. And please visit our website at wifimodelrailroad.com and learn more about, go through the resources, the FAQs, and you can read the reviews in the magazines, customer testimonials. There is forum that's slowly getting pretty active, and there's a lot of contributions going on there. and it should all help you to get started, or simply email us. We're always there to help you out. Thank you, and I will take any questions now.